Thanks everyone again for joining us this morning. So I'm Katie Churchill, Leap's lead of engagement and design, and Cecily, our awesome CEO, is co-hosting with us today. So she'll be doing some of the technical stuff in the background for us and jumping in as needed. Yes, I will share my screen here just kind of in the background. I'll bounce back and forth, but basically what we're going to cover today is just honing our TechMate skills. So especially remotely. So it's definitely a challenge. Everyone's feedback has been that it's quite difficult when you're not sitting next to a person to give them technical support and to really show them the way and lead them in this learning towards gaining their digital literacy. So we just wanted to get some TechMates together today and share your tips on what's working, what's not working. We have presentations by Brad, who is the area coordinator for Central West. He's going to talk about TeamViewer a bit. And then we're also going to go into supporting over the phone by Phil. And then we'll discuss anyone else's tips as well. So the first thing that we wanted to do was to start off with just a one-on-one discussion. So Cecily is going to put us in breakout rooms, which is a feature we'll talk about later as well. And in our breakout rooms, we would just like to talk to each other about what's your status as a TechMate? So are you currently doing remote sessions? What's your experience with them so far? And let us know any challenges that you have encountered along the way. And then we'll share those once we come back to the group. So Cecily is going to pair us up, and she and I will kind of bounce between the rooms as well and see how you're going. This will be 4 minutes, and she'll give you a warning when the time is up.
Has anyone done breakout rooms before?
No. Yeah.
Look, Masab is just coming in, so let's get him in, and then I will get 4 breakout rooms now with 2 each, so that's perfect. Masab, welcome. We're just about to go into breakout rooms. Katie, can you repeat what we're going to discuss?
So we're just going to meet one-on-one. If you can introduce yourselves to each other, give a little update to each other about what your progress is as far as where you are as a TechMate. Are you currently holding remote sessions? Have you done any sessions yet? And then what are the challenges that you're facing with doing these sessions remotely? And then
we've got 2 minutes each, so off we go.
I'll open it up to the floor. Jinu, if you're just joining us, we just did a one-on-one with each other to update us on what our status is as a TechMate and also the challenges that we faced as remote TechMates so far. So I'll just open it up to the floor. I'll just see who's first in my gallery view here. Phil, you're to my left. Do you want to share just quickly what your challenges were?
Yeah, the challenges that I found was that I guess there are 2 main challenges. One is, were people up to speed, or were people sophisticated enough in terms of their technical knowledge to be able to use something like Zoom to be able to participate in the learner sessions. In most instances, I found that wasn't the case. In other words, it would require a face-to-face session to be able to set them up in the first place. And the other problem I found is that people just didn't have hardware that could support things like Zoom. So in other words, some of the people that I was mentoring had desktop computers, which didn't have a camera or didn't have a microphone. And so it wasn't possible for them, and they really wouldn't want to go and buy additional equipment for that particular purpose because they had no other use for it. So they were the 2 main issues that I faced, but on the phone, it actually worked reasonably well. Yes, it's slow and it takes more time, etc. But as I'll go through a bit later on, we were able to find ways in which I could make it work on the phone.
That's really useful feedback. Thank you, Phil. I'm Katie. I'll keep a record of this.
Okay, great. Thanks, Cecily. Yvonne, I think you're next.
I only did 1 session on the phone, and it was a lady, and she was fairly competent with the phone. She had a few issues, and we sort of mostly talked for about half an hour. But then she said, I'll fiddle with it myself, give me a call in a couple of weeks. And we didn't sort of make a time. And then I thought, well, I'd already rung somebody else a few times and they weren't home, and I'd rung her a couple of times and she wasn't home. And I thought, I just didn't like this. I'll ring me in a couple of weeks. I mean, when I commit to the aged care facility on a Tuesday, I know that I'm going there on a Tuesday from 2 to 4. That's my day. But I just wasn't about to, have post-it notes, try this person, try that person. It wasn't going to suit my lifestyle at all. And I I do it for also the social interaction and the personal interaction with people. So I didn't get any sort of great delight from doing it on the phone. So I actually rang Stephen and said I wasn't really comfortable in doing it again. It just wasn't my thing.
But Yvonne, would you be would you be willing to do it face to face if you had a mask and they had a mask, like in a cafe somewhere, like in?
Well, I was just saying to Hafsa, my husband and I have been really strict. I haven't seen, we've just decided, you know, we don't want this. We don't go anywhere except.
Yeah, I understand that completely.
Don't see family, don't see friends. And so I wouldn't see.
Yeah.
No.
I totally get that. Totally understand completely.
No.
Thanks.
Thank you. Hafsa?
Yeah. So I actually haven't been able to get connect to my area coordinator yet, and I haven't been assigned any learners as of yet. So there's no experience to share.
We're going to sort that out.
That's certainly a challenge.
Sure.
Katie and I have already talked about you, and she's onto it. Don't you worry.
That's right.
So hopefully that'll be the past next time we meet. Yes.
Yes.
Brad, anything you wanted to share?
I think the biggest challenge is convincing learners that the online is going to work. Obviously, people want to do face-to-face, and that's the easiest way. But once you get past the first hurdle of relaxing them and getting them comfortable in trying something new, like what Phil said, getting them to install the program and getting them to actually want to go ahead with it is probably the hardest thing. But once you've done all that, in my experience, the two learners that I've had really positive views about it afterwards. And the learner that I'm still teaching, she looks forward to it every week. She loves it. Obviously, her preference would be face-to-face, but I just keep explaining to her that, you know, whilst that's the best option, we can't do that at the present time just for safety. But yeah, even if something happens and we can't, even if something happens on her side or something happens on my side and we can't do it, she's actually upset that we can't run the session. So it's really nice that she looks forward to it every week.
Thanks.
And she's getting so much better too. And she's even seen the progress herself.
That's awesome. That must be really rewarding. That's great. Thank you, Brad.
Yeah, it is. It's really good.
Ready?
Like I was telling Cecily a minute ago, I just had one phone call session with my learner. She was reluctant, like the other learners, about doing it on the phone. She would have preferred a face-to-face session, but I assured her that it should make no difference from a learning perspective, that I would take her through whatever we need to do to learn what she wants to do. So she was sort of assured, but unfortunately, I only had one session and she had to go into hospital this week for a minor procedure, she told me. So we agreed to get back next week. She was positive. She had two main issues. She said she didn't tell me what those were. She wanted to discuss those in detail at our next session. She was positive, and I think we'll make some progress at the next session. And I'm generally very determined. I don't give up easily. So I'll try to help in whatever way the learner is comfortable with. Like Brad said, eventually I want to try to get her to go on to TeamViewer or some app like that to do a learning session. I have TeamViewer on my phone, so I think if we can get her to get that going on our iPad and iPhone, we should be fine. But I can give you more updates after I had my first full session with her next week. Yeah. Thank you.
Great. Thank you, Vinny. Masab, looks like you're at a beautiful island beach somewhere.
Yeah, I'm actually maybe using my imagination where I wish I was.
He's in Melbourne.
So being stuck in the lockdown, so I have my imagination only. For me, I was assigned one learner who I contacted, I think like 3 weeks ago. and she said that it's been a while that someone has contacted her and that she's not interested really in anything other than face-to-face if that gets back. So, and that she's already set with her tablet, and she has her son helping her and everything. So she said no need for any further sessions right now. I reported that, and only just before the weekend last week, I was assigned a new learner. I still haven't contacted her. I'll try to get in touch with her today or tomorrow to see what sessions she's interested in, because I can see that she took already 6 sessions in the yeah, Carol. So I'll contact her and see I'll get an update about her sessions and where she wants to go from there.
Thanks very much, Masam. I hope your session goes really well.
Jinju has just sent us a message about her reception. She says, I'm not on my laptop and the signal's not good. I only have one session through the phone. The learner's issue is very based on practical stuff like plugins and cables. So I think it's quite hard to go through the phone with learners studying practical skills. So it does take a lot more patience, doesn't it, as you all know. Like even our team member, one of them was telling us how she spent 3 hours just setting her mum up. I can't remember what it was she had to set her up with, but it was maybe just setting her up with Wi-Fi, and it just took so much time. But thank you, Jinju, for sharing that.
Thank you. And Lizanne, I think you're last.
Hi.
Hello.
Yeah. I have actually not been doing sessions, the remote sessions, for maybe a month or so. When I started in May, I just asked 2 learners from one, which actually didn't get in contact with her, and a person was not well when I actually hit the phone call. So yeah, and after that, I've been assigned learners, and recently Joel got in touch with me. That's what I told Brad, and he assigned me 2 learners. So yeah, I have to call it was just yesterday. So just them up today and we schedule a session with them.
Excellent. Good. I hope you can reconnect with someone. That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, sure. Yeah,
awesome. The challenge that I faced mostly was face-to-face and also remote with one person that I've worked with in Lithgow, and also my parents who are overseas, with mostly hardware issues, kind of like Phil was saying, where it was either a very old device or very slow, and it was hard to tell sometimes if it was an operator error or if it was the hardware itself not supporting what you were asking them to do. So that was kind of one of my challenges, but that was a session quite a while ago. Great, so thanks again for sharing, everybody. So I think what I'd like to do now is we will take these challenges under consideration, obviously, and what we're going to share is a few tips and tricks to make the remote sessions go a bit smoother. So we have 2 approaches we're going to talk about today. Brad Yee is going to present one of them, which is TeamViewer, so how to share a screen with someone remotely. And then Phil's going to talk us about how to support someone just over the phone. So using things like screenshots and text messaging pictures to actually convey what's happening on the screen. So if Brad, if you were ready to start, do you want to jump us through with TeamViewer, please?
I think you're still muted, Brad.
Sorry, I am muted. Did you want me to connect to you, Katie?
Yeah, that's fine. So do you want me to be on the computer or the laptop or the iPad? Which would you prefer?
I'm assuming that, sorry, has everyone used TeamViewer before?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes, I have.
Nope.
A couple.
So, I mean, it's pretty, sorry, a couple no's, okay. So TeamViewer is pretty easy on from desktop to desktop. But when you're doing desktop to iPad or another tablet, it's just a little bit different. I can go through both if you like.
Yeah, that'd be great.
All right, let me.
I use a different version of TeamViewer when using it from my smartphone. I use the quick support version. That seems to work fine. Not the full TeamViewer version when I'm.
Yeah. So when I haven't used it. When I connect to somebody else's iPad, they have to use the quick support version. But do you use a quick support version on your phone to connect to somebody else?
Yeah, I've used quick support from my Android phone to another Android phone.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
Works fine.
Let me just see if I can share my screen. I can't.
You've got the green button at the bottom, have you, to share?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So for some reason.
Do we have to make you a host? Maybe I have to make you a...
Can Katie share her screen otherwise? Because she's on the other side, isn't she?
Yeah, I'm not sharing mine right now, but I can.
Well, we should be able to see hers afterwards.
Okay.
So, Brad, you can't share your screen. Should I make you a co-host so you can? Or, yeah, it's only
I'm just trying to share. I was just trying to share the program because I've got a lot of stuff in the background. Not that it matters. Let me just share my. Let me just share my desktop then.
Okay.
Yeah, that looks
All right. All right. Cool. So this is how TeamViewer comes up. These are my details if you wanted to get into my screen. And here is where you would remote into somebody else's machine. So I just need Katie's Katie's ID. Does she also say allow?
It does. So
I can't read that. Yeah. 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 So the other user has to click allow for you to allow them in. Now, if you can still see my screen, this gives me the instructions that Katie needs to do. So she actually needs to click start broadcast.
Yep. And then mine here says start broadcast. So I'm going to click the button. Now it's saying.
And then you have to do the dark gray one as well.
It's counting down. So it must be doing something.
Yep. So
Can
it
I just
counts
ask
up.
a
So
question?
that's him.
Brad, can I just ask a question? Does Katie did you have to have Katie had to download TeamViewer as an app on her iPad?
Sorry.
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
I should have explained that. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Katie had to download TeamViewer Quick Support on her iPad. Yeah.
And
So it counts up the time that she started broadcasting her screen.
And so it's just an app, and you get an ID. You're allocated an ID.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, everyone has a unique ID. Yeah.
So even
So you'll see that my.
I'm sorry.
Yep. Go on.
I was just going to say that whenever we have issues with our computers at work, our IT support, we use TeamViewer, we give them, and they come in and fix whatever the problem is.
And they take it. Is that the one where they take over?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. So when you're doing when you're doing TeamViewer desktop to desktop, you can take over. When you're doing iPads, the iPad you just have this. You just broadcast. Katie's just broadcasting her screen for me to view. I can't actually control her iPad from here. You'll see on my screen.
So if I just go into like my home screen or something, will it show you that? Yeah. Okay. So if I went into like.
So you'll see on my screen, mine's in portrait view. You just need to click these little arrows down the bottom to flip that round.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I'm just navigating to a page on my tablet and it's just broadcasting to Brad's screen now. So vote for Cecily. Put a little message in here.
Yeah, so this is how I go in, and with the current learner I have, this is what we do. And I get to see what she's doing live, so it's much easier to do our sessions so she can ask me. Because sometimes it's hard when she's saying, she's trying to explain what an icon is and I'm not sure what she means. And this way you can see exactly what she's talking about. My learner's been really good at asking questions. So she'll actually, for example, say on this particular screen, Katie's got up, if you go up the top, Katie.
Yep.
My learner will ask me everything on the screen. So what does that what does a magnifying glass in the top right hand corner do, blah, blah, blah. And we just go through all the little icons. Because we sort of take it for granted that there's some things on screens that we just don't even really look at because we know what they are. But a lot of learners don't understand what all the buttons are and what if they need to use them or if they don't need to use them. We went into Facebook the other day and there was just so many buttons and little things, and I was like, oh, half of these things you probably won't use, but we just went through the ones that you'd most likely use.
So I can imagine the challenge being to convince people to download such an app and for them to be comfortable with the stranger going into their computer, looking at their computer.
Exactly, yeah. So, I mean, this is part of the thing that concerns me for security. With logging into an iPad or a tablet, you don't have control, which is okay, but some learners may, there's going to be personal information on there that you might see.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
So whenever I log in, I always tell people, don't show me any passwords, don't show me anything that's personal to you. If you're uncomfortable with any of this, let me know. And they should know that at the start, because if they're not familiar with technology, they could easily show you something that they shouldn't be, you know.
Mm.
Now, I know, Brad, when we do TeamViewer for like IT support at work, it actually like blurs out when you're entering a password. I'm not sure if that happens with this version or the one on the desktop either, but that's something maybe that we can look into. Sometimes it's smart enough to know not to display that, but I don't know if that's across the board or not.
Yeah, I think it's had some updates lately where it even certain things, it will blank the screen if it's a security question or something like that, so that I can't see the screen at all. So it has improved a lot. So did you cancel the session there, Katie?
No, it's still it went to sleep, so I'm wondering if that's what happened. But I still have a
yeah. So what happens a lot is I get this where it'll comment, please comment on your connection with unnamed, and that just goes back to TeamViewer, I'm guessing. I always just close that off anyway. Usually what will happen is I'll wait maybe 10-15 seconds and it'll come back, but often it actually kicks me out and I'll have to just reconnect. But if you want to disconnect that on your side, Katie.
Okay. All right, that's done. Stop broadcast.
And I'll quickly just go log into your desktop.
Sure. So what I will do...
You'll have a different ID.
Yeah. Let me grab my TeamViewer here. And what I can do is I can share my screen when I'm getting to that so everyone can see what's happening with it once I find it. Oops.
Yeah, so on the hardest thing is convincing them that what they're doing. So I have some users saying, well, what does this do? What is it? Will it harm my computer? Do I have to pay for it? And all this sort of stuff. But I mean, if anyone feels uncomfortable, they shouldn't do anything. I mean, I tell that to all my learners as well. Anything you don't feel uncomfortable with, don't do it. If you feel wary about it, don't do it. Same with emails. Anything that's, if you're not sure about it, you'd rather delete it than, you know.
So I'm not sure if you can see my screen now, but this is like what Brad showed before. This is what I'm looking at to share my information for Brad to allow remote control.
Now these, for people that haven't used TeamViewer before, that password changes every time you do a connection. So I can't just save that password and then access Katie's computer at any time. So there's that as well. So I'm logged into Katie's machine.
Katie, is that your machine?
That's my desktop.
Yeah, I know.
Don't worry about it. Here, look at this instead.
This is really enlightening for me.
the first thing I want to do is tidy up that desktop.
Yeah.
The same sort of thing here, but unlike with the tablet, I can actually, by default, I have control of Katie's machine. So
You
Katie
can open
can
any
change
tab,
that.
right? It's fine.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. So I can do a new tab, and then I can tell. I can even type as well.
Oh. Yeah.
So that's a security risk in itself, because you can go around doing anything you want, really. That's why they need to know what you're actually doing before you even start doing
that's
this.
the negative side, but the positive side.
Yeah, that's a negative side.
Yeah, and
I mean, yeah. So there's 1% negative with a 99% positive sort of thing, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But that it is making sure that our tech mates are honest and and that's why I think we should always do spot checks on our learners to see what's happened as well. And
100%. And so in the last year, because I do work with an insurance company, and I do graphic design for them, I've just learned that last year it cost the Australian economy $1 billion in cybercrime. Since COVID, that has increased to $29 billion. Wow. So we're in this world as well where people are doing more Zoom stuff and that sort of thing. So I know it's a negative thing, and I don't want to dwell on the negative side of it, because it is such a powerful tool, and I use it every day with my IT work that I do. But with people that aren't tech savvy, it's something that really needs to be explained properly.
And see, Brad, I see
that
this
I
as
will have control of your machine.
Yes, it definitely has to be explained properly, but I see this as like even more, that information you just gave is even more important, that we're out there reaching people to educate them on how to stay safe. And, if like just going in through TeamViewer to show people how to check for scams, like, how you can search that scam watch or something. Like, even if you show them once like this through this, then even in TeamViewer, they can demonstrate to you how they do it, and you get to see that they know what they're doing. Like, you've not just told them.
That's right.
You actually can check their understanding, which as a teacher is, or, a tutor or whatever you want to call yourselves, that's so important that you can check that people learn.
Oh, yeah. I think our first one should be always about security. Yes. Cyber security. Our first session should be about that, even if you don't log into anything, just talking about it. The other thing is, like you said, is following up with learners and being, and all tech mates should, be, I don't know, I can't think of the word, but they should be, there's that fit for work thing that you sent as well.
Yeah, look, that will never stop. I've heard of back in the days when back in the days, it's still a thing, child you do working with children checks. When I did training as an aid worker, that the people that are pedophiles that have been criminals, in prison for this stuff, make it into senior management roles in the organizations that are actually working to stop pedophiles. So you can't.
That's right.
You can never assume that criminal record checks or even people seeming really honest and everything is safe. We have to do spot checks just to make sure learners are safe, I think. And area coordinators need to monitor the session records as well to see if there's anything suspicious, so that there's a few ways, not just one, to monitor all this stuff. But I don't know with COVID what else we can do but use these type of techniques. And really, I should stop talking. Let all of you tech mates talk about how you're feeling about this stuff. Yeah,
no, 100%. So it's just something I wanted to bring up, and obviously, there's no other way around doing remote sessions unless you use some of these tools. But so I'm not sure what's going on with Katie's screen there. I'm seeing this.
It's full
great.
screen with Zoom, so
Ooh.
everything within Zoom is all crazy.
Zoom within Zoom, yeah.
Goes into infinity, all your information.
Very pretty.
Yeah, so because there's a few things that you can do in TeamViewer as well. So I can record what we do, and you could even send that to. So if you wanted to, you could record a session or a part of a session, and then even send that to your learner. I think they can only open it in TeamViewer. I can't remember how what format it presents it in or saves it in. And there's a few other things that I use as well. Also, by default, it should remove the learner's wallpaper as well. So if they have pictures of kids and stuff like that, it removes it. So it's because it's deemed as something personal. And there's other actions you can do as well. Like you can actually, there's a thing where you can, I haven't done it for so long now. Maybe you can't do it anymore. But I used to be able to even reset somebody's computer from my side.
Oh my goodness.
And then that way I could stay connected after they've rebooted. But they may have taken that away because that's sort
It's
of
still there. You can, you can give permanent access. I do have that too.
Oh, yeah.
When I go overseas, I connect to my home computer without anyone here actually giving me access.
Oh, yeah.
That's
Nice.
dangerous, though.
Yeah. Anyway, there's a lot of things that it can do, which you probably don't need to learn in this session because I have to go soon anyway. Yeah, so I mean, in a snapshot, this is how we use TeamViewer.
How many would be using that, do you think? How many of the tech mates?
Based on session records, I've seen a handful use it. Probably 5 or 6 tech mates have used it and recorded a session about it in the past.
Mm-hmm. Never mind about the learner feeling uncomfortable. I'd be worried I'd be shutting down or wrecking their computer.
Oh no, I think you'd be all right. I mean, if you want, I can even do one-on-one sessions with you, Yvonne, if because it's kind of short, you know what I mean? So, it's a very simple tool, but Zoom does very similar things. It just depends on what you're comfortable with or what you're familiar with.
Awesome. Any questions?
So we're seeing you're saying that you could send them a Zoom link and then share their screen, but they'd have to know how to share their screen, or you'd have to know what they're asking and share your screen with them to show them the answer to what you're. Yeah,
that's right.
Mm-hmm.
So what's the policy regarding face-to-face, not face-to-face, video chats? Are we allowed to see each other's faces, or is it only going to be supposed to be phone and TeamViewer?
No. We really wanted Stephen, who's just got a placement in his studies, so he can't do it anymore. But he, right from the beginning, he was said he worked out how to share screens with WhatsApp, and I don't know how. We're really hoping he'd come and show us that as well. But absolutely, you could use WhatsApp to do video chats. You could do Zoom to have video chats. You could. We did look at giving everyone, all the tech mates, Teams access in Microsoft, so you could do video chats, but it was just too many channels for you all. And yes, we want it to be the way you and your learner wants it. It's not a but as Phil said right at the beginning, the challenge is if they don't have a camera and they're using an old desktop and they don't have a microphone, then that's where you're limited again. And really what Yvonne described is like having just that chat for half an hour. Even that, we're happy that you're doing that because you're keeping someone engaged who's otherwise isolated, and even if you can just keep them motivated to keep wanting to learn, because it does worry me what Brad just said about how many people are scanned through COVID. we're not reaching people to, you know, from our side at Leap, we're spending so much every day. We spend time trying to contact organisations and to get the message out of what we're offering. But the take up from learners is so slow to wanting to use. Yeah, even before even when we're face to face, the take up was so slow. It's just, and yeah, and honestly, there's no way like we couldn't exist without all of you, because, you know, I get what Yvonne's saying. I think that's a really important point about how you don't want to be wasting your time ringing people back. They don't answer. To try and make the time. We've got to have a better system around that, because it's got to work for you as well. But there's no way, like, can I digress for 1 second? Sorry, and just tell you what happened when I talked to the Director of Services New South Wales this week. They want to find a way to get better customer experience, but the person who set up the meeting from the Office of Sport seemed to be just assuming, or they also seem to assume that, oh, we're a not-for-profit, we'll do it for free. And, you know, there's no way that we could offer our services, like your services, all across Australia, like a matter that, you know, following up, like, you know, Hafsa has just said that the area coordinator, someone has to follow that up. You know, there's so many layers to all what we do that you just can't do it all completely without some paid staff to oversee it all. And yeah, but they don't seem to factor that in. They just think it all happens on the smell of an oily rag, that they just expect us to keep stretching and stretching and stretching, you know.
No, I know it takes a lot of organization to get this thing.
Yeah, and it's not just like, it's like what we're trying to do now is increase everyone's skills around how I wanted to know from Brad how he does it with the quick team viewer, and from Phil what he's doing. Like, from all of you, we want to learn, because then we can work on how we can spread this message to more people. And Katie's whole job is about looking at how we can get learners to keep learning more, because, you know, as you said, they say they've got 2 problems, and when they get those problems resolved, they want to go away. But do they really know how to protect themselves from scams? Do they really know how to, you know, access government services or bank online to stay safe? Like, have to have a choice to not go out if they want to stay safe at home. You know, these are the things that we have to try. And anyway, Katie, I'm going to be quiet and let you take over.
That's fine. Yeah, I don't want to run too far over on time here, so I'll move on to Phil, if you don't mind sharing your tips on, yeah, Brad, if you need to head out, that's fine.
And thank you, Brad.
Thank you for that, Brad. It's been really, really helpful, and I think just getting to see how it actually works is a big help. I'll hand it over to Phil.
That's all right. I'm looking forward to seeing Phil.
Yeah, absolutely. So if you wouldn't mind, Phil, we'll run through some phone support. I'm going to pop out for 2 minutes and just grab my child who just woke up from a nap, and then I'll be back. So Phil, I will hand the floor over to you.
Okay, well, I'm just going to attempt to share my desktop, because I've got a few notes written down here, and hopefully this is going to work. So can you see my desktop?
No.
Not yet. Okay, well, we'll just go back, because I've got a few desktops running here. So
you tech guys, you know.
Let's just try this one. Yeah. Desktop number. Let's go desktop number 1. Share it there. Right.
Okay, it's working, Phil.
Yeah.
So you can see my desktop now.
Yes.
Excellent. Okay. So the reason I went for phone was because the issue I mentioned before with the users, and not one having the tech skills, and 2 not having the hardware to be able to support it, really didn't give me a choice, because I didn't think they weren't going to go and buy cameras, etc. So I basically started off by doing a few things. See, my slide comes up. So what I found it was necessary to understand is what the learner requirements were before I even started. What did they want to do? Did they want to do text and email, social media, whatever it happened to be? I need a good understanding. Unfortunately for me, because I've been working with some of these learners beforehand, I already established that relationship with them. and already had a fairly good understanding of what they needed. The second part of that is to understand what devices they're actually working with and the brands of those devices. So is it a tablet, is it a laptop, a desktop, smartphone, and what the brands are, because that then gives you some insight into what you're looking at. And the third thing I found was important was understanding what operating system. So if it was Windows that they were working environment they were working in, was it Windows 7, was it Windows 10? If it's an Apple device, you know, what iOS version is it in, etc. And finally, what applications, you know, that they're working with. So, you know, are they working, if they're doing email, are they working with Outlook? Are they working with the default client on their device? Are they working with some other email application you're using? In my particular case, the learners I was working with, they were actually using iTunes. And again, what was important there was understanding what version of iTunes they were using and what device they were using it on. So in their particular case, they were using iTunes and they were using it on a Windows machine. And the reason I say that is because devices are applications that go over multiple devices like iTunes and like text messaging, like emails, etc., will present themselves slightly differently depending on the device you're working on. And they will also have some slightly different functionality depending, again, device you're working on. Next thing I found was important was to try and replicate what they were doing on my own device. Okay, so selecting a device that either matched theirs. Fortunately, I had access to both a Windows PC and an Apple PC, as well as an iPhone and an Android phone. So I had a choice of which way I could go. Next, try and duplicate or replicate the operating system. So if you're working on Windows 10 and they're working on Windows 7, it's going to be really hard. If you're both working on Windows 7 or both working on Windows 10, it's much easier. And in things like Windows 10, it's possible to have a virtual desktop, so you can actually have another application, a virtual application running on there. Again, I tried to replicate and was able to replicate the applications and the versions that they were actually using. So I've got the version of iTunes that they were working with, and they're also using an application called Audacity, which is not that well known unless you're in the music industry. And I was actually able to then replicate the version of Audacity. Fortunately, I was aware of Audacity, and I was able to replicate the version of Audacity on my machine that they were using, and so it became relatively easy. So when it came down to the actual procedures, the actual online session with them or phone session with them, I got the learner to open the required application from scratch. So I said, okay, you know, shut down everything on your desktop and just let's open the application from scratch, because depending on what they're running in the background, it can have some impact on what you're trying to show them. So I just get them to start up either iTunes or start up Audacity. Another one was doing some photo management, start up the photo tool that they were using. So to start that from scratch. I would then start to just get them to tell me briefly what they saw on their screen. So particularly things like menus, what was in the body of the screen, any taskbars, etc. And that was just to try and establish that we were both looking at the same thing, that we both had the same baseline to start with. And then I also thought it was a good idea to check the preferences on the application that they were running, because the preferences can again affect what menu items they had. So get them just to go to their help screen, drop down the preferences, and then I would just simply set my preferences to match what they had on theirs. I wouldn't ask them to change their preferences. I would just adjust my preferences to match what they had on their screen, so I knew that I should be seeing the same thing they were seeing. And finally, each time we didn't executed some functionality, whether it be a pop-up menu appearing on the screen, whether it be a drop-down menu, whether it be the body of the screen changing, the content changing, etc. I'd get them to just give me a brief description of what they were seeing on the screen, what changed, what pop-up menu appeared, what drop-down menu appeared, etc. So I could try and keep myself in sync with what they were doing. Even if they had done something incorrectly, or something I didn't want to do, I was trying to keep myself in sync with them so I could tell them how to then correct it from there. Some of the traps that I came across, again, different operating systems or different applications appearing differently on different operating systems. The preference setup, because it affects your menu options and your saving options and some of the screen views, and any applications that are running in the background. So if they're running something in the background that may impact the application you're trying to show them, that was a potential trap. And again, some antivirus software, because some antivirus softwares will give you pop-up menus or pop-up screens at certain points depending on what you're doing. And I found that was just something you needed to be aware of. So I'd normally ask them just to tell me what antivirus they knew or how to identify what antivirus they were running before we started. So I could try and identify any pop-up windows that appeared. Some other items I came across, I was seeing different things or getting different screens. I found it hard. Some wouldn't even know how to give you screenshots. So the other easy way is use your phone, take a photograph of the screen and just text it to me. And we used that on a few occasions and that seemed to work fine. I likewise sending them back screenshots or sending them a text message with a photograph of my screen so they could see. Again, sending them screenshots or text messages with my screenshot and just using some simple text messaging overlaying that. So circling things and pointing out various bits and pieces so they knew what to look at. Some of the other things that we did that were quite useful is that if they came across something that was a bit unexpected, particularly during the course of when in between our meetings, is I got them to, if you want to send me a text message with that attached to me, send it to me, send me a text message with the screenshot attached, and we can discuss that when we meet up next time. So it's kind of a little bit of a homework, a little bit of preparation, etc. For the meeting. So, I mean, that's not a sort of the technique that's going to necessarily work for everyone, but with the learners that I was working with, that seemed to work reasonably well. We continued throughout the whole lockdown period using that. It's slower, it's more complex, but it seemed to work. And I think if you built up that relationship with the learner prior to going into lockdown, it certainly helped. So yeah, that was what I used, and as I said, it seemed to work reasonably well.
Wow.
Good stuff. Yeah.
Found that amazing, Phil.
Phil, is it possible to share that presentation? Email it to us. That's very useful stuff. A lot of things you discussed there. I hope it's not or copyright.
Yeah, I'll email it to Katie, and then I'll, Katie, if you're happy to share it.
That'll be great. Thanks.
We'll send it out with some notes from this whole thing, with that.
Yep.
That'll be fantastic. Yeah.
So as I said, I don't think there is one magical solution. I just think sometimes you just have to adapt it a little bit as you're going along, depending on the learner you're working with.
Yeah.
That's awesome, Phil. Thank you for sharing those techniques. I definitely learned a lot as well. And that's really helpful because taking pictures is probably one of the earlier lessons you do. So getting screenshots and pictures of screens is a really good idea.
Can I just say what Phil's point too about it helps that he knows his learner, and Brad's, I know from speaking to Brad that he had met one of the learner he's probably talking about the most here, he'd met her once before we went remote. So you people that come on and haven't never met anyone, you do have a slightly harder battle to build that trusting relationship. But I love how you're describing things, Reedy, and Masab, I'm sure you're doing the same, and have so when you get someone, Lizanne also would have had an experience maybe of some of her learners. But yes, it is hard. This whole trusting is so hard. We get that.
Great. So thank you again to Brad and to Phil for sharing those awesome tips. If there's no questions for Phil, I think what I'll do now is just open it up to anyone else that has a tip they'd like to share. If you don't, that's okay. But if anyone else wants to share what they're doing or what's worked, now is the time, please. And if not, that's okay too. I know a few of us haven't had
It's too
sessions in a
early,
while.
possibly at a later session.
All right.
I might be
Yeah,
able to.
we can do these again down the track.
Thank you. So Cecily, I know we're up to time, so
I think we
I would
have to
think
stop,
I
yeah.
think we'll stop it there. And so what we'll do is we can send out just a follow-up to this with Phil's slides, some other resources. We will try to tailor this for a recording to send out as well to other tech mates that are interested. So as you get new tips, please feel free to share those. We are looking to expand the resources section of the TM training page. So things like this will add to there. That way, as you're going through your sessions, you can always use that to reference any of these tips and any ones that come up in the future as well. Any questions before we depart?
No. No.
Really appreciate everybody being here, and yes, for anyone that's awaiting a new learner or an area or has had trouble getting in contact, you can continue to liaise with your area coordinator and myself for now, and we'll make sure to iron out any of those issues and going forward that we'll make sure you're in contact.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Everybody, I really appreciate it.
Thank you,
Bye.
everyone. So
Thank
nice
you.
to see
Thanks,
you.
guys. Have a great week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.